Good afternoon, good evening, whatever it is, wherever you are. This is John Paul Rai. I'm coming to you from Tokyo, Japan. This shirt really needs to be ironed. Today I'm going to talk about why the fan base is really split, and there's a few reasons, but I think there's a main reason that people who defend The Last Jedi kind of give too much credit to. And before we get started, you guys have all heard the news by now that Kathleen Kennedy will still be here, so we're going to keep the tradition alive on this channel. Alright, as I was saying, a lot of people who defend The Last Jedi and the Disney franchise say, well, there's a toxic fan base, and that's why it's split, because, you know, so many people didn't like The Last Jedi, and they complain, and there's a vocal minority. But there's one thing that they're really overlooking, and as far as disagreements on story and characters, and I suppose it's opinion, I think there's strong opinion and weak opinion, but in the end it is opinion. But the thing that's not opinion is that the public relations with Disney and Lucasfilms especially is horrible. Now, the thing is, yes, there is only a few specific people in Star Wars that said things that are distasteful, but it's also this general thing in Hollywood. Now, Brie Larson said she doesn't want to hear what a 40-year-old white male thinks about a movie review. So yes, Brie Larson is not Lucasfilms, but right now they're under the Disney management. So I still consider her part of the family, and I would still blame Disney for not controlling her. We also have Rian Johnson in the LA Times saying there should be no white dude directors in Star Wars now, or less, or something to that extent, and this is like friggin' ridiculous. He is a white dude director, and he's the most disliked white dude director for Star Wars ever, and maybe just movies ever, so it's just a ludicrous statement. Then we have Kathleen Kennedy, who doesn't directly say sexist things, but she wears Force's female shirt, and she says things like, women can't relate to Han and Luke, meaning they can't relate to the men in the movies, or something like that. So yeah, Kathleen doesn't directly say things, but she implies them like crazy. So this, for me, is the main reason why the fan base is split. Now, people who are defending the Disney movies might say, well, you know, the prequels, in its time, split the fan base, but that was a lot more of an innocent disagreement. That was more like, oh, George, why did you put Jar Jar in that movie? You know, that was terrible. Or, you know, why did you put those cheesy aliens and love scenes in episode 2? It was more of like a love or hate thing, but I think there was more of a sentiment in the air, and I was 20 when the prequels came out, and, you know, I was talking to people, I was on the net, I was very conscious of what was going on, and it wasn't like we hated the people who liked them, it was like we were really happy there were still people who liked the way they turned out. Well, 3 was awesome, but, you know, let's, you know, stick with, in general, for 1 and 2, but now it's like people are just like cutthroat against each other. It's just a really horrible feeling in the air now about these gender politics and social justice warriors. It's a very different type of split, and I think the other side has to acknowledge that type of split, especially if they're old enough to remember. And I will admit there's definitely hate on both sides. It's not just one-sided. People who dislike The Last Jedi and the Disney franchise have their, you know, pet names for all the shills or whatever, and the people who defend it have their pet names for the channels we like and things like that. So yeah, it's not one-sided, but my main point is, you know, these PR relations with Disney are really the thing that are turning a lot of people off. Now imagine this. Imagine Kathleen Kennedy came out and said, alright, you know what, I think I made a few judgment calls about Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, and, you know, those were my creative decisions, I stick by them, but I could understand why some people are upset. If she said something, you know, just kind of normal like that, or even if you knew that she still wanted to push forward with her agenda, but she was at least coming out and trying to tell the fans that, you know, I'm a little bit sorry how this turned out, but this is what I want to do, there will be a lot less of this, like, real hate and real, you know, bad air that's going around. And the same thing about Rian Johnson, and JJ didn't help. by saying, well, if you don't like The Last Jedi, you're threatened by women. He could have said, you know, I understand why a lot of people didn't like The Last Jedi. There were some calls in there I might not have made myself, but this is what Ryan chose to do, and I respect that. But instead, he just has to defend it like, oh, you're threatened by women, and that doesn't work. That's just like kind of a punch, punch, punch at the fans, and it's really the public relations that split the fan base, and that's the main reason. The other stuff is creative differences. We'll have that, and that's more lighthearted, but the blame has to go up to Disney and Lucasfilms. And I say Disney because they're the manager. They're managing the restaurant where the waiters are calling their customers racist and pissing in the food.